Today is Tuesday of the 5th week of Easter. In the waning days and weeks of the Easter season, we continue to focus our attention on the triumph of the resurrection and new life. In today's gospel from John 14, Jesus says to his followers, "Peace I leave with you, my peace I give to you. Not as the world gives do I give it to you. Do not let your hearts be troubled or afraid." I would like to underscore the phrase, "not as the world gives." Jesus promised an experience of peace that may not meet our expectations for calm, quietude, or comfort. Sadly, many people of faith believe that by trusting in God, saying their prayers, and fulfilling ritual obligations, their lives will turn out just as they desire, or at least will be spared serious suffering. They believe that religious belief and behavior are the necessary transaction to be paid for good health, prosperity, and little disappointment. However, our belief in the justice and peace that Jesus brings does not mean our world has been miraculously transformed into one that is just or peaceful. This is obvious. Nonetheless, it may be a more challenging truth for us as Christians to recognize, since our weekly celebration of Mass, our regular gatherings and prayer groups, and our collective works of service and justice can create a closed bubble in which we have built up our own little optimistic insider kingdom of God. In my experience, these kingdoms or worldviews usually belong to someone other than God. They belong to the self-righteous do-gooder, would-be leader, or passionate advocate for a cause. Now, please don't misunderstand me. My purpose isn't to put down sincere virtue. Rather, I'm reflecting on the experiences and concrete acts of self-righteous behavior, including my own. While we are called to go into the world glorifying God by our lives, we must also recognize the significant limitations we all face as human beings. Our religion calls this sin. Every person contains in oneself the potential for the very best and the very worst of human behavior. In our domestic relations, as well as in the broader society, conflicts can easily arise from each person containing potential for good and evil. Collisions of interests inevitably lead to conflict, violence, and hurt. How easy it is to dismiss the pain we inflict on others because our motives were good, noble, just, and righteous. The early church faced many of the struggles that we face. They were a fledgling community, embracing radical social relationships in their attempt to live as Jesus had taught them. A sect that protested the religious authorities, political authorities, and even the religious and political definitions of sex, gender, race, and class, as the early Christians did, were bound to end up facing persecution and exclusion. In today's first reading from Acts of the Apostles, we hear of Paul and Barnabas. They strengthened the spirits of the disciples and exhorted them to persevere in the faith, saying, "It is necessary for us to undergo many hardships to enter the kingdom of God." It's through the lens of Paul's exhortation that I am reading Jesus' message in John. Now, if it is necessary for us to undergo many hardships to enter the kingdom of God, then what do you think my peace the peace of Christ is like. The world, filtered through my own millennial life through Instagram, promises peace from wealth, beauty, fashion, youth, or whatever the algorithm thinks is my bubble of worldview and desires. Social media's advertisers and influencers play on our fears of lack and inadequacy. In his book Life Signs, Father Henry Nouwen writes, "When fear dominates our lives, we worry about our value as persons and become easily preoccupied with products, cars, houses, books, influential friends, and important decisions. Our culture claims that satisfying our short-term desires and attaining broader life goals will assuage our fears and bring us peace. As a Christian, I am not convinced by this claim. The peace of Christ is actually found in undergoing hardships. This is a theme I've reflected on for the past few months, but let me try to put it another way. I don't mean to suggest that faith can merely help us endure hardships. I'm suggesting that undergoing hardships is central to our life of faith. Without suffering, we cannot receive the peace of Christ or participate in God's kingdom. Some people offer a simplistic assertion that religion is more popular among the poor and the suffering because faith gives people hope. There may be some truth to this statement, but I think it suggests a relationship that is far too transactional. I'm suggesting that the deeper truths of our faith can only be experienced if we pass through hardship. Why else would the cross be the central image of Christianity? Surely Christ could not take a detour around the cross, a shortcut to the resurrection. The life of Christ shows us a path to follow, and imitation of this path leads us through Gethsemane to the cross. We embrace defeat, but are not undone by it. An issue of Time magazine profiling Father Pedro Orupe, the famous 28th Superior General of the Jesuits, called him a man who, quote, looks to the victory of the resurrection, where many others are only able to see the defeat of Golgotha. The challenge and task presented to us every Easter season is to look directly into the eye of defeat, to gaze upon the cross while still being able to look through it to the resurrection. It is our only path we have to the triumph of new life.